Hey, everybody, welcome. I'm Natalie, and this is Scientology, a life after a cult. And today we get to do one of my favorite things, and I'm so glad you guys are here with me. Hey, Mod, shout out to you. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the members for being here and everybody in the live chat. And if you're on the replay, welcome. Thank you for being here. Jump in those comments. Put your questions, put your comments. I want to hear from you as well. Today, we get to sit down and have a talk with Gary Jackson Morehead, who was the security chief at Scientology's international base back in the day. And he also was a Riverside firefighter for 20 years as well, over 20 years. So we have a lot to talk about, from Scientology to even what's happening with the wildfires in California. If y'all could help me out, if you have questions or a comment you want me to bring up, if you could write question or comment in front of that, it'll make it easier for me to keep an eye on that. And we'll get to as many as we can. Thank you for being here. If you are so bold, hit that like on your way in. I would appreciate it. And check your subscribe. Just after I got off my earlier live this morning, I went to a channel I follow, not even in this genre, just in the camping world. And I had been unsubscribed. So I subscribed back. All right, everybody, we're going to kick it off. Without further ado, I would like to welcome the one, the only, Gary Jackson Morehead.
Hello, Natalie. I'm just me, sweetie.
You know what? And people are going to learn more who don't know about your story, and some are familiar with you. We've got some wonderful former Sea Org that is in my audience as well, and I hope that they chime in. But I think the reason so many people, especially former members, know who you are, because of your position in security at the int base, you really got to know so many different people. You weren't limited to just one area in that way.
Yeah.
Can you, right off the bat, can you talk about how basically at the int base, it's like one building doesn't know what the other building is doing, kind of a thing?
Well, first I might say I have a getting over a cold, and I may wince because I got a cough-generated sore throat. Kind of coughed a little raw, so I watch. Anyways, so I hope you don't hear that in the microphone. It sounds all good. Are we good?
We're good. We can handle
Okay. Yes. From when I arrived there in 1982 to when I departed in 1997, I was never fixed in one location throughout all my activities and tasks and job responsibilities. So I didn't have a wide variety of them. I was pretty much went there to start renovations on the Star of California. Quickly found myself watching staff members, executives who were in ethics trouble or in trouble.
And explain to people who might not know, what does that look like? What does it mean when you're watching somebody?
Well, let's see. So 66 to 82, what's that? That's that would mean I was 14, right? 66 to 82, would that mean I'm 14?
I don't know. I don't do math.
66 to 76, that's 10. 76 to 86, that's 20 minus 4, back to 12. So I was 14.
When you joined the Sea Org?
No, when I arrived to the base.
The international base.
Maybe, let's see. Anyways, I was a very young, little, skinny, blonde-haired punk who was cleared to brought up to the int base as part of the crew to build the Star of California. It didn't exist at the time, what you see now from the roadside or any Google Maps.
Yeah, tell people what the Star of California is, because they might not know.
The Star of California was L. Ron Hubbard's personal idea-driven solution to creating integration into the local public in a subtle way, where we could open our doors and allow local charities, hoo-has, I don't know, what do you call them? Have a social gathering, people get married, stuff like that.
Yeah,
come
like
on
an
board.
event venue.
Come on board and relax, and also for a place to be R&R for staff to swim. There's a swim there. Anyways, designs were put together, surveys were done about the name, yada yada yada. Manpower was built up. I was brought up from Los Angeles, and I started working with whoever was assigned. I don't know why they were assigned. There was just a bunch of people. I just remember it was a hot afternoon and walking up there and like, here we go. And took a sledgehammer and started breaking up what was called the baby pool, which is this huge, I want to say maybe 25 foot in circumference, but shallow pool that moms could stand in there with their babies and dip them in and out and splash, splash, splash. That then became the koi pond and waterfall area of the ship. But that was just pretty labor intensive all day long. It just went wham bam right on, working in the hot sun.
And you were a teenager then.
Yeah. So let me just, because my brain works, let's see. So 1982 minus 1966. I was 16.
16.
Yeah. So I was 16. I found myself being assigned to watch this gentleman. His name's John Nelson. This other gentleman, John Nelson, who was being taken off the CO, the commanding officer, the high executive position of commanding officer, CMO International at the time, and Carrie Gleason, this other gentleman, Kenny Lipton, Paul Grady, and there was a couple others, I forget. Anyways, I didn't know what I was doing. 16-year-old against all these adults. I was assigned to work with them. We were working up and down the main driveway called Broadway, clearing the palm fronds off the trees. And we were to remain separate from the general crew through these work assignments. So, excuse me.
Why were you to remain separate from the general crew?
Don't know. Those were my instructions, and I followed them. Did not understand. That's what I was told.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No
I'm gonna get my mouse.
Yeah. Anytime you need to cough or take a break, because we do know you're getting over a cold or something, please feel free to.
Yeah. So there was a lot I did not understand, which is not, it was pretty typical in the Sea Org. You were told and just did.
Yep.
Over time, you learned and understood more. So that came later. Eventually, and not in a hindsight fact, but eventually what I came to understand was this was one of the beginning stages of transition, change of power, people being bad-mouthed to Hubbard when their actions and intentions were actually, some people did not, some people liked, a lot of people liked him. A few down to one person, Dave Miscavige himself, did not like him. It was an usurp of power.
Who did David Miscavige not like?
John Nelson.
Okay.
Who was Carrie Gleason. Yeah, these guys had great ideas for the future of Scientology.
Yeah.
Believe me, there was once a hum going on up that place. And the climax of it was in the early 90s, and then it just took a solid dive off of a cliff. But having said that, I'm just going to keep it simple to here I am in a new place over the rainbow, proud that I arrived here, that I'm trusted to be here. It was a little bit of a mental, spiritual high, yada, yada, yada. During the course of it, I ended up cutting my left thumb with a skill saw pretty deep down to the bone. Wow. And this is where, and I already knew Janice and her sister Terry, but this is where Janice, Terry, and Paul became one with me. Paul medically looked after me. I didn't go to the doctor or nothing. He just looked after the healing of it. And the ship came to what it is today. There's a lot to be told about the little interesting facts behind it. Like there's official, genuine Spanish coins set at the base of each mast, or it may just be one mast, like the center main mast, but as a tradition, because the intent was to have a Spanish ship docked in a Polynesian port for the crew to have good shore time. That was the kind of what it was converted into to look like. So, all right. So that was that trip. The ship was done. I went into cinematography for a short stint. I was brought over there to work on sets and props, build the walls, paint the walls, and build the props and stuff. Props being like the apples on a table, and the table itself sets as the walls. So during in the middle of that was Battlefield Earth was being promoted by Norman Starkey.
The book or the movie?
The book. The movie hadn't not come into
out yet. Okay.
Yeah, it hadn't even been spoken. Well, it may have been spoken of, but no effort been put forward to make the Battlefield Earth movie happen yet. So a lot of promotion was being set up and done. And at the time, there was this festival called the US Festival, which was the 80s version of Woodstock.
Oh.
That was set up out in San Bernardino County. And it was a huge, incredible come together of huge bands. I got to see Stevie Nicks, Kinks, U2, anyways, whatever. It was, I could not enjoy it at all because I was there to work. We set up these sets where the character in Battlefield Earth, Terrell, I just had to look after him, yada, yada, yada. And the intent was to get some stock pictures generated from that of all the public enamoring Battlefield Earth. So then they can be used as promo shots and sent out around the world. And just that was ASI's Author Services Incorporated, who Norman Starkey worked and represented, as effort to promote Battlefield Earth. So funny thing enough, the main cameraman in that and another staff member decided during a prime photo shoot, they were out under a blanket in the open grass area watching the thing and doing the hippity dippity. And that turned into a big issue because he didn't get the shots that was needed. And then, believe it or not, back at the base in the cinematography studio, which we call the Cine Studio. And this is all happening while I'm still working in Cine. So this is still 82, late 82. This is happening. I may be off 6 months, half a year. 6 months, half a year is the same, but it's 6 months, a year on this timeline. But there was so much upset created by that, the shots not being gone. We had to recreate the US Festival back at the base. And this is where I got to see all the Imp Base staff dressed down as, being real people, bikinis, shorts, flip-flops, being wild. That was, and they all had to be still shots. So it was, I think people even had smoking cigarettes all in the studio just so it could be caught on film, holding beer cans or whatever. So much effort was trying to gone into that detail. We spent months and hours on end, all-nighters. It was just a strange thing. So this was all my introduction. I then became part of this whole educational training, a shooting training program that Mitch talks about in his series called the Get Your Feet Wet, Get Your Feet Soaking Wet series, where Hubbard had the crew reenact episodes from the Twilight Zone. And if we can emanate them and duplicate them, that was us getting our qualities in better as a shoot crew. So before that came to an end, I ended up the Imp Base. There was people hardcore externally going after L. Ron Hubbard, looking for him. And this is when the C organization officially created its own uniformed, identified, posted security force. There was already 3 gentlemen part of it at the base, but that wasn't enough. Who were uniformed: Jim Cupp, Matt Pesh, and Kenny Siebold. 3 great guys, one of which is no longer with us, Jim Cupp. But that's where I got to know Matt, and I knew Kenny. I was recruited into the, you probably remember, you suddenly wake up one morning and there's an executive directive hiring a posting order.
Yeah, you got a new job.
Yeah, the following people.
No one else want the job. No one checks with you about it. No,
that's right.
You got a new job.
Yeah. There was no, you think you could, no. It was just, this is your assignment. So, so I found myself as part of the new official security force, where there was 3 watches consisting of 5 guards apiece, and a security chief, a deputy security chief. There was a security threats officer who didn't hold watch. He dealt with directly full time perceived or concerned threats towards the imp base.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were security officers that showed up, watched, and held watch for 8 hours. There was the main security booth, there was the Broadway booth, there was the Beulah booth, and then there was the BV booth, Bonneview booth, and then there was a roving guard. So let's see. Main booth, Beulah, Broadway, Beaver, and roving guard. So yeah, it's 5 guards per position, per watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite a bit of folks dedicated. So we also had a pretty, at the time we thought we had a productive security system. We had underground microphones and sensors set up around a pretty tight perimeter. It wasn't as big as it is now. But
when you say underground microphones, so we're talking about Scientology's international base. The underground microphones were to catch things happening near the perimeter of the base. What was the intent?
The intention was to detect sound, vibration, or movement. I mean, if you're going to set up a security system for your house, what is it? What's your objective?
Mm-hmm.
So we looked around at what items are available on the market, and it was discovered that we could install these microphones that simply, when it picked up vibration in the ground, it would activate an alarm.
Okay.
And we put them in PVC piping underground, so they kind of were suspended in ground themselves and be able to work as microphones. And the Gophers had a heyday with our wiring system. So we also had a security systems engineer that full time basically kept throwing boxes of Band-Aids on this very prehistoric security system compared to what it is today. So that was security. We went from handheld 20-foot antennas, CB radios, to official two-way radios, our own communication, uniforms, flashlights, handcuffs. We got a motorcycle to respond to alarms. And we had our daily routines. There were internal directives, like security directives. They were looked like flag orders, black on white, but they were titled security directive exclusive orders, directions and advices for it. It was Hubbard's language translated into orders and policies for us. Supposedly, that's the best of my knowledge. Some of these things I later found out were 10 general orders, as an example, we had were based off of some military standards, but nonetheless, like one of which is, we can't listen to the radio on watch, no sleeping on watch, yada, yada, yada. And then the consequences for certain things, if you were caught sleeping on watch, you would be instantaneously sent to the RPF.
Wow. So you got sent to the Rehabilitation Project Force gulag if you get caught sleeping on watch.
Yeah. And one night I was on the night watch. That day I got off night watch. Typically you go to bed, but there was special training being set up for us. We were doing jujitsu. There's a lot of serious approaches to get us trained and physically trained to deal physical, mental, security.
So security at the international base, when you were there, the security guards were trained. I did not know this. We're being trained in jujitsu.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
What were some of the other things you were being trained in? Jujitsu?
That's all I can tell you. I mean, I can still remember the moves. It was Naha Chikimai Us. That was one of the commands that you did. And it was using your body's motions to protect. It was so long ago, but that's what I remember what it was.
Do you think, Jackson, some of those moves, was that mainly, do you think the intent was because of someone who might be coming in, or to use it on other Sea Org members?
No, never once. Not up until way later did anything ever have a taste of being used against the staff
in a violent way.
In a violent way. Much later, yeah. That was something that progressively evolved, mostly by Dave's dogs getting loose during fireworks shows. But I'll get into that when I get into that. But yeah, none of what we were taught.
Yeah.
We also were issued. We had 12 gauge shotguns. We had 12 45 pistols, and we had 2 H&K 91 high power rifles, assault rifles.
And was
As
all of security trained on how to use all of these weapons?
that's what I was doing this night. Is we
Mm.
were um, up at the rifle range and being taught on the handling and use of these guns and shooting them.
After you've been up all night doing
That's
security
correct. That's correct. So I did that. Ended up getting like 4 hours of sleep. Came back and watched the next night, and I made it through somehow. But ironically, I was sitting at the main guard booth out by the roadway, and chin in hand, oh, there's my relief, seeing him walking. And literally, I mean, he couldn't have been 40, 50 feet away from me. Next thing I know, I hear this knock at the glass. And he said, "You were sleeping." Yeah. I was like, "What?" His name was Kurt Hammond, by the way.
Yeah.
Didn't do me any solids by not helping a brother out.
Yeah.
But I even explained to him, "I just saw you over there. Was I sleeping?" "No way.
Yeah.
In fact, I saw you put your jacket in through your bag loop handle."
Mm.
He goes, and it's, of course, what you can make your moral decision then. You just know eventually it's going to come up in a freaking sec check.
Yeah.
So the tattletale, what is that? Yeah, the reporting system on one another is very, very locked in because of the sec checking. If you
Yeah.
don't say it now and it comes up later, you're not only, if Kurt didn't report me, he would end up going to the RPF.
Yeah. That's
So
exactly because in Scientology, especially the Sea Org, if you are aware of some type of out ethics situation and you don't report it, like you were then charged with the same thing.
yeah, you were held accountable. It's just you're going to become an accessory to the crime.
Mhm.
So, anyways, I knew what was potentially coming. I hustled to get to sleep. I got woken up like at 6 p.m. that night, like a few hours before my normal wake up for midnight watch again, and asked to report to the security office. I was brought over there. Paul Kellerhouse, who was the deputy security chief at the time, and Rick Azran, who was over security. He's the one that put the security force together. He was kind of managing it. Of course, Kenny Siebold. So we understand you fell asleep at watch, and PK sitting there with his legs crossed and writing on this piece of cardboard that has this looped collar to it, I guess, hanging thing. Anyways, he says, and it says, "I let the team down. I am going to the RPF for letting the team down." And
It said that on the piece of cardboard.
yeah, that he was handwriting out with a Sharpie or with a marker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of in, like pizza box size, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
medium pizza box size, to be hung around my neck. So he didn't explicitly say what happens, but he says, "You're going to get tossed in the lake. Campbellman, take him out there." And I'm in my mind racing what to do, how to do.
Yeah, and so you're actually wearing the sign around your neck?
Not at this point.
Okay. And you're still a teenager at this point?
Well, yeah, I'm still 16 going on 17.
Yeah, so you're a minor.
Mm-hmm. So,
Wait,
so
well, I guess minors can how did it work with all of the weapons?
there
I
was
mean,
no, no, I don't know.
nobody was paying attention to those those underage laws. So you're sleep deprived. They've got you up all night and then learning how to use weapons. You fall asleep, don't fall asleep. They want you to wear this sign around your neck and they're told you're going to go be thrown in the lake.
Well, he's making out this sign. It was kind of prematurely sequence of events, but I saw him making up this sign,
Mhm.
and I kind of could tell the writing on the wall what he's doing there. He says, "You're going to be tossed in the lake." One of my fellow guards, Kenny Campbellman, escorts me out to the lake. Now, at the time, the lake is not what it is, what you know it or see it to be today in any Google Maps. It was very crude, natural water drain runoff, very full of thick, decomposing, like it looked like oil oozing up through your toes, stepping into the edges of it. Yeah, it was
Ugh.
pretty significant. And to dive into it, you had to get into it and then find a pocket. It was just kind of weird. Anyways, so the whole point being, I was in my clothes, shoes and all, and I knew once I got out, I knew he was going to escort me back. And I said, fuck that shit. That ain't going to happen. Take me back to the office. So I jumped in, did my being thrown in the lake. Kenny gave his, we commit you and your sins to the sea bullshit
Because
statement.
they say that, right? There's a statement that they would say in the Sea Org when you would be overboarded on the ship. In the time of L. Ron Hubbard's ships, they would throw you into the ocean, right? And so this was throwing you into the lake and then saying that same phrase.
Defining a traumatic incident is to as an actual seamanship. What am I trying to say? Routine. You know, was just wrong. I think that's somebody justified. It's like, at least we said this, that clears us. We weren't meaning illness. Anyway, so once I realized that he was not going to allow me to go back to shower, I came out and I could outrun Kenny. So I just hauled back to my berthing, stripping my clothes off down to my underwear by the time I got to my door, and hopped right in the shower. So, you know, and here I am in the shower. It's like,
yeah.
So he's on his radio screaming that I'm avoiding coming back. So I got showered in some good clothes, brought back over, and they didn't like that I did that. I don't think that changed my outcome or the plans with me, because what happened then is you're going to be wearing this sign standing out in front of Massacre Canyon Inn, or MCI, which is the original name of our eating hall, MCI Massacre Canyon, from the Hot Springs days. But it's the point in which everybody, all the executives and staff, enter to go into the dining room and eat. So nobody would be missed seeing me. So I had to stand there with this sign around my neck saying what I did. And then this lady, Liz Ingber, came by, was very, very upset by this. Rick Asneran and Vicky Asneran were inside MCI, standing in a central dance area. There's a floor in their dance floor, and it's kind of an old school parquet floor. And they were in there talking, and Liz went up, and Liz is this little Australian firecracker, and stood up to this big burly Rick Asneran, and she expressed her disappointment and upset that it's not okay that they're doing what they're doing to me by standing out there with the sign hung around my neck, and how degrading it was, of course.
Yeah, especially as a minor.
Yeah, you know, this minor stuff, it's a fact, Natalie, but it was on anybody. That was never a concern.
Yeah, I know.
Unfortunately, maybe it would have saved a lot of things.
Yeah. So she's standing up for you and saying this is not okay.
She's at least voicing, and there was firecrackers. Janice probably would agree with this if you spoke to her about it. Janice and her, they may have not gone along together. I don't know, but I could classify that if there's any two strong women to talk about and voice something, it would be Janice and it would be Liz. So it's just, I'm reliving what I remember took place then that night.
Yeah.
All my personal belongings, I basically had to leave everything behind. I didn't have, you as a SEER member don't have a whole lot, but going to the RPF isn't temporary reassignment. So my bed's not going to be back there. What I have established here is not going to be here. I'm no longer going to be an int-based staff member. It was very disappointing. It was upsetting to me personally. I upset people. I undid what I thought that I worked hard to do. It was just very introverting. So down towards LA, jumped on the LA van at the time. This girl by the name of Valerie Page, she was the one driving back and forth to Los Angeles to INT, delivering the communication, and also staff who needed to go. And I got the midnight run down to Los Angeles, arrived at the PAC RPF. And it was just the beginning of, that old unrenovated, hospitalized with they were up on the 7th floor. The RPF was up on the 7th floor. And echoey concrete, hard floors, confined spaces. but everybody's a 10 hut, 10-2, yes sir, yes this. Because the RPF can't talk to anybody outside of the RPF, there's a lot of talk inside the RPF, just because you otherwise don't have any human interaction. So there's a whole lot of talking going on all the time amongst RPFers. Anyways, at that time, INCOM, the International Network of Computerized and whatever income management.
Yeah, Scientology is like their IT branch.
Yeah. Was being built out on the first floor, and that's what their RPF was assigned to do. So, I got to witness and took part in installing all the lead-lined walls. There's big sheets of lead that were lined around the outside walls of INCOM to protect them from prying eyes electronically. And that was interesting. I'm basically building that place out. Met a lot of folks. It was fun. And then during that, there was a decision back up the base that they wanted to get a building built out to house SEMO International and Exec Strata. So that was this building at the base called Del Sol. So resources for that, obviously. Well, there's base around the RPF down in LA. Let's bring them back because they're already basically cleared. We'll just have a whole section set up and keep them separate and policed and monitored. But they're our workforce. So back up I came. Short stint in LA, back up into the base I was. And this this was the beginning of winter. So January, February, March out there in evenings, man, it was cold. To desert standards, it's freaking cold. To Portland, Oregon, it's flip-flop day, but it was cold, and we used to ride in a stake bed flatbed between Happy Valley and the base because we were birthed at Happy Valley, which if anybody's been following, and I'm just gonna not tell that whole story, but Happy Valley is eventually where the staffs of the base children were set up to bring them in closer approximation to their parents through the kind-heartedness of Biddy Miscavige, who pushed that through and made that happen. But that property was being used as a dumping ground to keep security threats out of the limelight of Sea Org activity. So,
and by security threats, you mean individuals, people.
Yeah, people who are considered a concern to operations. They could not be trusted.
So they would go stick them with the children.
With the what?
With the kids? They would stick these people with the kids?
No, eventually later on, no. I'm just saying, I'm speaking of Happy Valley.
Okay.
People here your audience would probably instantaneously relate that to where the kids were. Yeah. There was a time where there were no kids.
Oh, gotcha. It was the dumping ground for out of Sea Org members.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, this remote area that had no fencing and no means of controlling, people could just, thanks very much, drop them off, keep an eye on them. Van goes back to the base. People would just walk the fuck off. But nobody did. It was just strange. It was just the mental, what Lawrence Wright did such a good job. What is that?
Going Clear.
Yeah, and the
prison of belief.
Prison of belief.
Yeah.
You could keep staff secure by having that prison of belief. So surprisingly how everybody just didn't up and leave. Anyway, so we began doing renovations and building what is now Del Sol. Well, it's always been Del Sol, but it became the SEMO Exec Strata building and built it all out. And then other projects spawned off of that. The LRH Music Studio, the 12 mic studio got built. More RPFers were brought from Flag by a whole busload. It was like the Partridge Family bus that arrived. They literally had a Bluebird bus, school bus, all the way from Florida. Ed Bivens was one that was on it. He was the bosun. Gosh, I've heard these names peppered throughout stories that I've listened to of people at Flag. And she was on RPF then. He was on RPF then. He was here. He was there. And the RPF grew into this. I mean, it was almost, I would say at least 50 people strong. And it was quite the force. And a lot of work was getting done. This new idea of manpower, at least for the base, really expanded. And a lot of work was getting done. And then there was a reprieve done where everybody was like, sorry, we're going to give you, as long as you do, what do they call that? Not an amends. Is it amends?
Amnesty?
Amnesty. Yeah. They issued an amnesty. All we had to do is write up all of our misdeeds.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, don't you think I would have already told you all that shit by now? You think I'm still holding on to shit? But
Mm-hmm.
okay, it was
Yeah.
just this weird, strange mental thing. But we had to sit there for a few hours and write stuff up. Some guys spent a couple days, but everybody eventually wrote up their amnesty. We got reprieved, and I got I was posted. Let's see, during the course of that, I think no. Anyways, I'm getting a little shady, but off the RPF I came. I think I went back to security. Yeah, I was back in security. And I basically had been in security up until 97 when I left. And that the whole blow drill was sadly my creation. It organically came about. But the official identified on paper, this is the blow drill and
Mm-hmm.
what to do, all the steps. Anybody could have eventually created this. I'm not trying to belittle it, but of my contributions, but I created this thing called the blow drill because I was asked to document, because the ability of my security force to find people over time became quite fascinating to others, in that through the use of OSA, I could get plates, bank accounts monitored, this, that, and the other. And I could send people out to sit them on houses and watch people and figure out flights and taxi cabs and frequencies. I'd listen to radio frequencies. I had this whole array
This is for anyone that took off from the base.
from the base.
Flew, that took off. So you were able to codify and put this together.
Yeah, because I got to tell you, the amount of mental pressure I'd be put under to find them and get them back. I don't know how to find people. They don't, you're senior in this organization. They do not
Yeah.
care. You know the solution.
Yeah, walk us through what that looks like. If you can think of a specific time where someone blew and kind of,
Well,
if you can paint a picture of what ends up happening when
the initial actions were obviously hitting the localized main public means of transportation, the Greyhound bus, the Amtrak, taxis.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, that was the three primary ones. You could also have hitchhikers, which we never discovered anybody did. But I monitored taxi frequencies. I posted people up at the local Riverside and Beaumont Greyhound bus stations.
Just looking for the person who had blown.
Yeah.
And then what would happen if you found them?
That we would make contact with them and start verbally coaxing them, killing time while others got there. People who had influence over their lives, or get people on the phone, like their best friend, their mom, their dad. Hey, listen, we're here to help you. Please don't go any further. I understand you're troubled. Verbal diarrhea, prison of belief.
Just to get them to come back and not escape.
Well, yeah, because they're on that teetering point of hopping on a plane or a bus. Yeah. So if we did find them already on the bus, we would have to find out where that bus is going and get somebody there to get there to meet them coming off the bus. And then that's where we would pick them up. 9 times out of 10, there was no physical detainment or controlling. I will not say that there was not any. I have since apologized to the ones I've been able to talk to about that. But it was mostly this fear, keeping a fresh religious loyalists in fear at all times. Progressively, they always knew that, gosh, somebody left and then they're back, and then the words start getting around indirectly. The people don't want to be here. You're frowned upon, this whole distasteful atmosphere. They end up blowing themselves. They get recovered. They're on the decks doing mess work, pulling weeds, getting interrogated on the meter, and spend months and months and months before they can get back into the norm. So everybody eventually knew that there was a procedure in play. If you just left, you just couldn't just leave. So
Mhm.
I even successfully, I mean, this is strange to say, and I don't say this because look at me, but I, for some reason, had this intuition to me when me and one of my guards is like, I know exactly where she's going. So this is like 20 minutes after our discovery of her gone. Got in the car, hauled to LAX, literally pulled up to LAX. A minute later, a cab from Hemet Valley pulls up and she gets out.
That's a
And
long ride, isn't it, to
well,
go from
yeah,
Hemet
I mean,
to
just think
LAX?
of the geographics. I mean, talk about needle in a haystack. But for me, I had my fear factor going on. I'm staying up all night, driving in LA. I know the shit I'm going to get if I don't get her back because she was considered a high security concern and
And
risk.
who was this?
Her name was Melissa.
Mhm.
Um, and but the look of disappointment on her face when she saw me and my guard Uwe, who's no longer with us, also. But she eventually ended up leaving ultimately. But this perpetual in-house fear factor, I saw progressively get built over the years of if you create this atmosphere tension of fear,
Mhm.
people respond with exactly what you need and want them to do. And all you got to do is mention taking a team share card away. You're going to
What's a
have
team
to,
share card?
well, a team share card was this penalties and award system that Hubbard tried to implement that eventually, as long as you hold your social card, that meant you always got your pay, your feeding, good, your birthing, you could get a bonus and you can get your days off.
What could result in you losing a team share card?
Not meaning a target or something that disrupted production, you can have a card pulled. And it progressively went down to losing ultimately your it was either your chow or your birthing card. I think it was your birthing card was the last. But if you lost your chow card, your chow meaning that's the military version of eating
Mhm.
food. Um, that didn't mean you didn't eat. It just all you could be fed was rice and beans.
Mhm.
So as long as you did not possess your chow card, um, you could eat nothing but rice and beans.
Mhm.
And of course, like I mentioned earlier, um, staff themselves, if they slipped you a chicken wing or chicken the thing behind their slice of pizza behind the scenes, it would come up in their sec check. So you couldn't even ask other staff. It's like, can I have that? Or if you were to go get it off of a plate that was people done eating, and it just was this
Yeah.
fucking weird thing, Natalie.
Well, and think
Weird,
about
weird.
it too, like it's and watch the F words, by the way. I don't want to get demonetized. You know?
I'm sorry.
You've gotten your 3, Jackson.
Okay.
So
Truly sorry.
no, no worries. I should have told you beforehand. I didn't mention it. I apologize.
I guess it represents my internalization of how upsetting it was. So
Well,
sorry.
no, totally, totally. I offline, I swear like a sailor. We've had some conversations,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
The idea, just that one idea of this social card that you can control individual members by their behavior. If you don't behave, we're taking away your food. If you don't behave, I mean, you're basically taking away their freedom.
Yeah.
Just that one act alone is so controlling.
Well, and by design, I mean it did give you the chance to correct and get it back.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is to be functioning at a level that you never had concern that you would lose it. So
Yeah.
um always having that, and it was represented having all 5 of your cards, you got to wear a gold star so people could publicly see that you have all your cards. So it was even on display for other people to take judgment of you.
On your
Even
uniform?
yeah, on your uniform. So if you didn't have your star, people would automatically assume that you don't have all 5 of your cards
So there's literally were you physically given 5 cards, like
and a star.
actual cards?
Yeah,
So if
and a
it was
star.
so you would they would just take the cards and then you
Yeah.
would lose your star. So everybody's walking around being identified with this whole I don't even know what you would call it today. Someone in the chat, I know you guys know I'm thinking about it's like this social like you hear about this happening in China where people are controlled by based on this social score, which is a
Yeah.
lot of what it sounds and we're talking about back in the 80s in Scientology and the sea
Yeah.
there.
I mean, quite honestly, I think it was a well-to-do pull it out of someone's crack to try to solve a problem that was at play and didn't really know what to do. You know, they didn't look outside of Scientology, obviously, to figure out workplace problems. But
Yeah, yeah.
um, I don't think I can't say that there was, looking back at it, that there was any of this Chinaism, you know, that type of stuff going on. But when you look at it, it is certainly a factor of control.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like Bina says, it's a scarlet letter. Like you're literally almost being like branded as if you don't have your star
yeah,
or less than.
yeah, you're automatically less than. Now you just may have one of your 5 cards missing. That's still a great place to be. Um, the star and your social card you lost at the same time. So your social card was the best card. Once you had your social card, that meant that you had your bonus card, your pay card, your child card, and your birthing card.
Wait.
Okay.
So, but explain what each of these things are, because it sounds
Okay.
like it's literally if you don't have this, you can't see your
Right.
kids. If you don't have this card, you can't sleep in your regular birthing.
Right. So I guess ultimately, if you lost all 5 cards, you are a questionable human being. What do we do with you? So, and that was the undertone message being sent. I don't have any more cards to pull for me, sir. Um, some of the execs would even flip out and go, well, I'm pulling the next 3 cards from you. So
Whoa.
even if you earn them back, that's what it turned into, is how crazy this prison of belief turned into. But it starts off in basically lines of priority for you as an individual. So, you know, you can, it starts off with your birthing card. So ultimately, at least as long as you have a roof over your head, you're surviving. To have a roof over your head and then move into your child card, um, that's there. Now you have your child card. So at least you're being fed and have a roof over your head. The
Mhm.
next one is your pay card. Your pay card is where, when the staff are paid, as long as you possess your pay card, you're going to receive your pay. If that gets pulled from you, you're not going to get paid.
Mhm.
Even if your statistics are up, whatever reason, being in possession of your pay card is the determining point whether you're going to get paid or not.
Mhm.
Being up stats beyond that is another factor. So you had to not only be in possession of your pay card, but your stats had to be up to get
To
paid.
get paid. To get paid. So you're
Yeah.
still working 100 hours, whatever it is a week.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're going to get paid the measly amount that SEERG members were getting paid.
No, no, your stats had to be up to get paid.
Mhm.
So, so that's the yellow being the birthing, red being your chow, orange being your pay card, green is a bonus card. So if bonuses were ever offered, which they were at the time, which is why it was included. So as long as you maintain, if you possessed your bonus card when bonuses were offered,
Mhm.
you could receive your bonus. And then after the bonus card was your blue card, which is your social card, which means you could attend any and all social activities that the group had to offer or put on, from org events to Saturday night movie viewing, birthday parties, stuff like that. If 2 staff members were getting married and during lunch, during dinner break, they decided to have a little celebratory party with it, you could not attend that if you did not have a social card to go pay respect and support to your friend. It's just because you didn't have your social card. If you had your social card, you could. Anyways, yeah, it's all terrible, Natalie. I just, again, this is the kind of aspect I like to bring to the table so people
Yeah.
understand.
Exactly what it's like. You
Yeah.
were saying too, I didn't want to lose track of a story you were telling. You were talking about when you went to get Melissa and
Oh yeah.
when you found her at the
Oh
airport.
yeah, Uwe and I literally pull up curbside. A minute later, the Hemet cab pulls up and she gets out, and the look of disappointment on her face. Now, Uwe was the guy who had the charisma and conversation, so he went in to handle her. We
Mhm.
ended up going to a Denny's finally so I can get some food. I don't even know how we financed getting it. Um, I don't know, because they never paid us to eat while we're out looking for people. But nonetheless, we ended up having a Denny's breakfast. I was so tired, trying to stay awake. We're both trying to talk Melissa into coming back. We're on the phone. back with the base, yada yada yada. Our goal was had to get her back. So as long as she was in our sights, everything was good. We just had to get her back to the base. So eventually we did. And that was just one example of how good. So now to be that successful, how to figure out how to find somebody that was basically over the demand of the situation. How do I solve this? Get them now, Jackson. Get them now. You better have an answer back from when I come back in 2 hours, leaving me swimming. And this is early on. So I then progressively and over time started realizing the key things. Well, it was easy at the beginning because as long as you knew their financials, you could see where they were making financial transactions. So a lot initially, I didn't have that, possess that information, but my mail lines did. So we would collect that information through the mail lines and started creating.
Well, when you say the mail lines, can you describe what the mail lines are? What
Oh,
that
yeah. All the personal mail to and from the staff of that base went through security's hands. All the outgoing and all the incoming mail would get inspected.
Mm-hmm.
So if a staff member wrote a letter to their mom in New Hampshire, they would be advised to put it inside this, mark it with as usual, just don't seal it, put it at a predetermined location. It would be collected every day. One of my guards would just inspect it to make sure it doesn't violate any security concerns.
What kind of things would be a security concern from the viewpoint of
Well,
Scientology at the end base?
that was made very clear and laid out in the security pack that everybody has, the security course they have to do when they first become a staff member at the base.
Mm-hmm.
And it stated what it is you cannot speak about outside of these four walls. And that has anything to do anything that would lead to indicate where we are and what it is we do and who's here.
Mm-hmm.
So that even got down to a point, Natalie, where we realized that people from the base going down to LA had pretty cool tans that the LA staff were noticing because we lived in the desert.
Yeah.
So by default, we had pretty cool tans. They were redneck tans, but nonetheless, we had tans. And that was a tip off. It was something we couldn't control, so we just didn't speak about it. But that's the level of depth of if we could have done something about that, we would have hidden that. But no indications of what it is we do, where we're at, what goes on geographically. If there was a sonic boom, if we can't speak it. So I never heard about that. God, all of Southern California heard that. Well, I didn't hear it. But we know that we would do it. I don't know if
nothing that would triangulate where you were.
Yeah, exactly. Where the imp base was.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what and then also any people's verbalized attempts that I don't like it here, I hate it here. My boss is an asshole. Scientology screwed up. L. Ron Hubbard's a piece of poo.
Yeah.
Whatever. Those kind of would get accelerated to the HR department.
Mm-hmm.
But the letter would get rejected. You need to remove this because you referenced you were out mowing the 500 acres of lawn that we had.
Yeah.
That'll tell people that we're kind of out and where we're at. So that's what would be looked for on the outgoing mail. On the incoming mail would be looked for attempts of influence and attack.
Yeah.
On the individual or the organization. That's where I came to know this gentleman, Arnie Lerma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Way back in the early day, because Arnie, it looked like it looked like he always wrote with his left foot because it was just such kooky writing.
Mm-hmm.
I could tell it was done on purpose, but he would do these character letters that where you cut letters out of a newspaper clipping as an A, and then and put it all together in a sentence. He would do those kind of letters and stuff. And I was told to keep an eye out for him and send them straight up to RTC when they show up.
He would send letters to the int base?
To the executives, yeah, Dave Miscavige and Ray Minoff, and stuff like that. And he would address them to the execs. And the funny thing too is the incoming mail to Scientology, and I think you would understand this, Natalie, but especially as an int-based staff member, to get porn mags in the mail, that would be a big no-no, right?
Yeah.
If I had a personal desires, I want to get me a Wee magazine or, Hustler magazine, I'd have to work hard to find out how to get one and then do the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
I was getting my fix through the mail lines because Dave, Ray Midoff, Norman Starkey, Mark Yeager, they all got them.
Hold up. I've never heard this.
Yeah.
They all got porn mags?
Yeah. And it was Penthouse and Playboys. Penthouse used to send theirs with this they used to just wrap it in paper.
Yeah.
And you could just so as it traveled, and they put a address label on it, send it off in the mail, and when you got it, you could just pull it straight out of the slip thing. So, but when I got it in the mail, you could just simply just half circle it, pull it out, check out the latest and greatest, put it back in, and send it on. But it was it was the beginnings of my, there's a double standard going on up here,
Yeah. So they in the mail, they weren't even trying to hide it. They had
No.
subscriptions
Yeah.
to pornographic magazines. David Miscavige, Ray Midoff.
Yeah. Jesse
Senior
Prince,
executives in Scientology.
Mark Yeager. Yeah. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, but to
Yeah,
Scientology,
I'm not saying, like, do what you want that way. I'm not judging it. I'm just saying in the Sea Org,
yeah,
this is
completely unheard of.
You would go to the rehabilitation
If
project.
you're any other Yahoo that was caught with it, you would be in deep trouble.
Yet these guys are just allowed to just get their magazines,
pay their own money. Yep. So,
wow.
And then I get incoming bank accounts and check, open up their bank accounts and document their account numbers. We didn't keep track of how much money they had at the time. I wasn't after that.
So if Sea Org members got bank account stuff, and before passing it on to them, you guys in security would note the account numbers and stuff.
Yeah, I progressively built this database on staff.
Yeah. You know what? So I just want to say before what I find so interesting, Gary, is a lot of, and I'm so thankful of your willingness to share this. It's the stuff that you did are the things that are nightmares for many of us who live, that we're going to be tracked down and someone's going to come get us. Yet almost every person I know that I've met, when I bring up your name, absolutely loves you. Total teddy bear. And I think in large part because you've really, like, you have over and over again brought these things forward and made them know, and you're incredibly open and vulnerable in your willingness to share about it. But I just wanted to say, I think that says a lot too about the man that you are. And, you were a kid then being indoctrinated into doing this. I just think it's interesting because many of the people who were at the base with you, Jess LaBarber's here in the chat, and, she's had good things to say. But at the same time, it's like, you would think that more would see you as the boogeyman because you're one of the guys who came to get them. But maybe there are some that do, but a lot don't. I guess I'm just saying, I really appreciate your willingness to really share what that was like and what was done. I know that's not easy.
See, there's other people in this community, Natalie, that I'm not going to directly speak about it, but I'll directly speak about. We were bad. We were part of a very bad, toxic thing eventually.
Yeah.
When we were part of it, we thought we were part of man's greatest ultimate solution.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be a walk in the park getting to that ultimate goal that Scientology was in pursuit of, which was a cleared planet. So you're going to end up being face to face, handling or being involved with dirty things with dirty people. Wasn't my intention. I thought what I was doing, and I know this holds true to a lot of the people that I worked with at that imp base for years.
Yeah.
And I could say this for even your sister, that little bit time that she was there. The people that I knew back then, the people that I know now, that Claire and Mark and Mitch and Mike and Kurt Wieland, and even some of the folks that I know that are still there.
Mm-hmm.
I know we all share that same passion. And that's what we bring to this community to help, I may not remember everything. I don't think a human can remember everything.
Yeah.
There could be 100 people out here that are sitting here festering, screaming at their screen because they hate me, and I'm truly sorry for that. I don't know how to fix that other than doing what I've done,
Mm-hmm.
to not only make it known to the individuals that I believe, the ultimate ones that I know can do something about it. What they do with it beyond that, I don't know, but I can't speak on that behalf.
Yeah.
And every single one of us has done the same.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same time, we're here to bring a better understanding of how this madness came about.
Yeah.
And I can't explain a lot of Hubbard's ways, but I got to tell you, there was clearly, to me, in my perspective, there was Hubbard's weirdness and oddities, but it was nowhere near the level of what Dave Miscavige brought it
Yeah.
to.
Did you meet L. Ron Hubbard when you were there?
No. It was always hung over our head that he was steps away. The Snow White thing was being heavily dealt with, and he wanted to come back. From what I understood, that's what all I can understand is what we were told. There was one time that I was told that he came onto the property because I was told I was on watch up at Bonneview, which is where his house was,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in the middle of the night told you need to abandon your post, and I was like, I'm not doing that. I thought it was a test, so I got in this big heated argument. There's no fucking way. So 4 or 5 people had to convince me
Yeah.
you're leaving. So I left. This van came up and was there for a few number of hours, and next thing you know, it was gone. So whether that was Hubbard or not, I don't fucking know. There was shady shit happening all the time. There were moving shadows
Yeah.
with mysteries. But I appreciate you expressing that, Natalie, because this is a very traumatized subject. Scientology is very traumatizing. It's a freaking cult.
Yeah.
And I don't have an answer. I don't study manuals. Didn't go off and get educated on it. What I do know is the uniformity of the experiences. There's something to be said about all that. So sharing it with each other and sharing
Yeah.
it to a community, especially people who don't have the willingness to speak up. I'm hopeful to help give them another level of comfort to not only be more comfortable with themselves about it. I don't expect anybody to come out and do it, but I've chosen to step to the forefront and utilize my experience
Yeah.
to afford people discomfort and to not be judged upon for I was a Scientologist. You know what? I got to tell you, that's one successful thing out of all of this is that it no longer is. I know for a fact because I went through this. I was fearful. So what about your past? Looking for a job. How do you explain you're involved with Scientology? I was embarrassed to put down. What do I put down? I was a security officer. Didn't want to have any associate with Scientology. But where were you security officer at? I'm like, okay, I was in Scientology, and that I would lose jobs. That doesn't exist anymore. Scientology is known as a batshit crazy cult,
Yeah.
and that is public perception has been brought about by delivering the truth and staying strongly holding the truth, not altering the truth, not speaking beyond what one knows. There's a lot of integrity in this community, and because it's so traumatized, it's also can go south really
Yeah,
fast.
it can. You
And
mentioned you said that you came to realize that David Miscavige's twist on, I always like to say he brought his own brand of cultiness. L. Ron Hubbard created a cult.
yeah,
Can you
yeah,
tell
yeah,
us
yeah.
more
Good
about that?
point.
You're at the int pace where you're starting to realize like this is really going south.
Yeah, I was. When you're a part of a place and you're part of a company or organization, and it just feels like everything is in the right place, and I'm part of a great thing,
Mhm.
and you get to start understanding whether or not personally or directly, but certain people, or you hear certain names and part of certain things, and then over time, maybe you start hearing that person's no longer there, and you start witnessing changes happening.
Mhm.
Well, from my perspective and my involvement, and as a security guard, I kind of had that feeling of there's a hum going on here that is fantastic, and I can see the results. So Dave Miscavige started chicken picking, getting rid of people. Started off with Janice's sister Terry, um, which was gobstopping to me that that woman's dedication, capabilities, and skill and love and whatever. She's just an incredible woman. How he could just, anyways, they started dropping off.
Now,
And
when you say dropping off, what does that mean?
no longer there. They were no longer, they
On.
first were not in the positions that they were. Terry was the EDASI. She was also the COCMO PAC. She had a lot to do with my personal life, but just these integral people who are part of history, Carrie Gleason's,
just start disappearing.
started disappearing and being chipped away at. And Dave was attached to every single one of them. And then the tone just started changing progressively. It was like, wow. And his efforts of singling, being the only one that could solve anything, that just became more and more verbalized, and people started buying into it. And ultimately this undertone of this fear factory, and what would be imposed upon us, or we would be forced to impose upon others, would roll downhill to the lower ranks of Scientology's structure, the middle management, all the way out to missions and stuff. And it's like, you would hear, it's like, shit, that happened here at the base. How does that end up getting done there?
Yeah. Do you mean in terms of the abusive behavior? And
well, yeah, it's like, I know I can speak on one that I saw. Some WDC members, watchdog committees members, high church executives, they went through their own ethics handlings and had to go out and do trenches and do this, do that, conditions, and put through their own things to get their shit in order. And then they, next thing you know, they write up their request to leave the property. And I got to read these things to see that they have proper authorization to leave. And they are going down to institute what was born down upon them. They're going down to institute down in Los Angeles. And that was satisfactory to Dave, because his reign is now working through the veins of Scientology. When I witnessed that happening, I was like, wow, this is really happening. And it was just very subtle, but these little tastes of there's change happening here. And then a very personal life event for me took place between my wife at the time and I, and always wanted this to happen, but never thought that the outcome would result in what it did, just because I was that dedicated. We both were that dedicated. And I ended up losing the love of my life. I would have, probably, I think,
because of what happened.
Yeah, I would have at least one 25-year-old child at this point. I would have a kid in my life.
So your wife became pregnant.
Yeah.
And this is when children weren't allowed.
Well, the kids' ranch was there. So to say they weren't allowed, it was severely frowned upon to get pregnant. And again, another transitional stage. But I was of the belief that I was trusted enough. We both were trusted enough. It was just only 9 months. And then another 8 months, 9 months, I guess, of mother and child bonding and all that, and distraction to her job, her post. But we were trusted enough that we would be the exception to the rule. I firmly believe that. I even told my wife that. So I announced it to the group, because I was
having a baby.
Yeah, that she's pregnant, and that's the way it is. And boy, did my life turn upside down. So I'm not going to go down that path. It's just, when I started shaking hands with a significant, grotesque reality, it was shortly thereafter that I left, that we both left. It wasn't a kind departure. It took 365 days to leave that base, under 24/7 watch, times 2 for me, 2 during the day, 2 at night.
So you had 2 people on you 24/7 for a year because you wanted to leave.
Yeah. And then we were physically separated, and she was out at Happy Valley. And I think it's by design that they set her up to be in the proximity of another man to mentally seduce her, which he did. And I hit the roof over that. That's a whole, like I said, that's a whole, yeah. Um, but the fact that happened under the church's watch, Dave Miscavige, the fact that to say that they didn't know about that, no, they know about that. And that was just part of, I know how the behind the scenes, that was a trickery when I no longer want to be there. It's like, well, here's a guy who's got the hands, who wrote the handbook on how to deal with people, the questions, the concerns, the this is and that's, the what we do's to control these people while we go through their handling. They didn't know what to do with me. I knew how to change a combination to the lock every day,
Yeah.
and but I stuck it around and I said, I'm not who you think I am. I will never be who you think I am, but entertain yourself. I will stay here until you say it's okay for me to leave. And that took 365 days.
How did it finally come to be that you were allowed to leave the base? And did you leave with your wife?
It came to be able to leave the base just as it started. It started with me sitting in front of a meter with Marty Rathman, where I could not get my needle to float. It ended with getting a meter checked by Marty Rathman, where my needle had to float. And it was just nothing but happy thoughts. How to manipulate the meter basically. So
Yeah.
I wasn't concerned about it, but that's how it had to end. They believed it. And I actually, in an effort to recover my marriage, used my leverage to get her to leave earlier than me, just to give her a sense of security so she could begin getting on with her life. I didn't realize how gone my wife was as my wife. But nonetheless, it was pretty traumatic.
Yeah. So you had no idea that she had pulled away in that way, and your work
Oh,
started
no,
to
I
get
was aware of it. There was glimpses that it could happen, but get fixed. But I don't blame her at all, because she's in this newfound freedom, as we all were. And my Lord, once you detach from that insanity, I just was very much looking forward to having the family and my wife. I'm that type of guy that, this may sound sappy, Natalie, but my mind is, when I see other men with their kids in front of them, and yeah, I understand what they're saying, but the mother of their child is just, in my eyes, I just take it a step further, that they're just as valuable as the kids, type of thing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I don't know. I kind of, it's my own thing. But that's just the way I was hopeful to have that life to live, that I would not only have the same continued level of love for the children that we have brought together, but for the woman that is, keeps it together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It took the time to bear those children. It's not like we moved on from that vessel. That's a human being that brought these, and whatever. It's just, there was it very much hurt to lose that, And, yeah, I will forever have one man in my life. Well, not really two, but, Dave Miscavige could just never fix that wrong.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think we started off earlier on what brought about the blows, but I don't know how much time you've got and how much.
Yeah. Well, we were kind of talking. I mean, there were a couple things we were kind of talking about. When you then left the Sea Org, what was that like for you? Tell me a little bit about what it was like for you leaving the Sea Org. Did you leave Scientology right away?
Well, first and foremost, it was a very, 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 very lonely situation. Very lonely as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing what to do, I didn't know which direction to go.
Yeah. Were you a parent in Scientology, Jackson?
My mom still is. My father wasn't.
So that's how
And
you got into the Sea Org as a teenager, is because your mom was a Scientologist.
followed my mom in. Yeah.
Okay. And
I
your
was,
mom's still a Scientologist.
yeah, I was kind of like my mom's security blanket. In my perspective, we've never spoke about, how come you never asked me whether I want to go or not?
Mhm.
What do I want to do in my life? How come you never gave me that
Yeah. And
choice?
I'm assuming she's disconnected from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has she been the entire time you've been out of the Sea Org?
Yes.
Wow. And that's a long time.
No. No, not until I publicly spoke out in the St. Pete Times back
Yeah.
in what, 2006 or 2009.
10, 12, I think,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
Because when
So
I hung up with them, literally when I hung up the phone with Tobin, I called my mom, called my sisters. They said, I want you to hear it out of my mouth first. This is what I did and why I did it. And they all wholeheartedly supported me. And look where we are now.
so back then when you did the Tampa Bay Times article, you're saying your moms and your sisters supported you, but then they changed their mind. Like where I didn't
Yeah.
know you had sisters, and and are they still in Scientology?
Yes. And yes. And their children are too.
So they're all cut off from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you leave the Sea Org, I mean, like you're saying, you're pretty much alone.
100%. When I left, Natalie, it felt like I was being dropped in the middle of Death Valley naked
Mm.
with dying of thirst and not knowing where to go.
Yeah. Where did you?
Looking, well, I went to try to salvage my marriage in Baton Rouge, Louisiana
Mhm.
for a while, and then that was unrecoverable. So I took of all things, a Greyhound bus back to Beaumont, California, and my couple of my firefighters helped me out. And funny thing is, through all the storytelling and the media exposure, I
Mhm.
never went to them, but then they came to me, and I was like, "Holy shit, man! If I had ever known, I would have kicked doors down for you." I was not of that mindset, you know. And again, back then, it was an embarrassment to be publicly known as a Scientologist. So,
Yeah. And fill people in a little bit because at some point while you're in the Sea Org, you become a firefighter, right?
yeah, well, that always been a lifelong choice and passion of mine. I remember before joining the Sea Org in Diamond Bar, California, waiting to get picked up for baseball or soccer practice. I just had looking across the street and had this thing wash over me, and I was like 7 or 8 years old. I just had this feeling run through me that I know what I want to do in life, and that was to be a firefighter. There was no, ooh, look at that shiny bright thing. No, it was just that's what I wanted to do in life.
Yeah.
So, not being of that age where I could then pursue what do I needed to do, it's just I made that decision.
Were you allowed to become a firefighter and others in Riverside because of the public relations value that would bring for Scientology?
Well, that's the
That's a bit
thing.
unusual.
That's how it came about. In that, because of the remoteness of the IT base, um, and especially back then, there was not a lot of development. The closest thing was like 8 to 10 miles away. The closest gas station, or
Mhm.
at that time, payphones and stuff. So we were kind of the first point of contact if anybody rolled their car or ran into each other off in this open wilderness off
Mhm.
to the west of us, you know. So we would end up going down there providing assistance and help until law enforcement and fire got there. So progressively, and then also local incidents would happen where there would be major wildland fires nearby, and Shelly Miscavige herself would come down and go, Jackson, how come you guys aren't out there helping? Because I would always be thinking the same. How
Yeah.
come we can't go help? And then it was this glorious, hey, mama says we can go type of
Shelly.
feeling. Yeah. So I call Kenny Siebold and we both jump on our security and we go out there and do. It was freaking uncontrolled, but we go out there and help. And Shelly just loved helping the local thing. So knowing that, at after 4 or 5 accidents, people coming up and helping us, I would have these conversations with Shelly now and then. And one day I told her, I said, listen, we got offered by the captain. It's like, you guys help us so much. Why don't you come down and become part of our volunteer firefighter program?
Mhm.
And I was like, ding, 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 ding in my mind, right? So Shelly was like, I mean, literally the words out of her mouth is, you have carte blanche with that. If
Wow.
anybody tells you no, tell them to come talk to me. If she had known about it earlier, I would have been a volunteer firefighter earlier type of thing.
Mhm,
She was
mhm.
like, oh my gosh, what an opportunity. She said, put together a list of crew, give it to me that you feel who have the ability to pull away from their jobs. And when the time's called, like their pager goes off or when's need, they can go out temporarily, help the local community out, and then come back and do their jobs, right?
Yeah.
So I put together this team, consisted of some estates crew, the staff that looked after the property, and then some of the cooks who I knew, like Senar Parman was one. He really had a desire to be a firefighter. So Um, she authorized it, and I begun kind of overseeing this whole program, making sure everybody was, hey, we got training tonight. Make sure you're there, blah, 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 organizing transport. And we'd all go out there and do our training. We all got certified, got issued our safety gear. Took a while. We had to do our medical training. We had to do our firefighter training and get certified as a firefighter 1. It was a no joke.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started responding to calls. And then it started falling off on the numbers, but I was the only one that was consistent because basically, I was not demanded to be fixed in a fixed position at any time. So
Mm-hmm.
anytime my pager went off, I could go.
Yeah.
So I took full advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I was able to exercise my inner desire to be a firefighter. But I was very, very active. And even in the local, our volunteer fire company, volunteer firefighters, especially at that time, was what the county of Riverside chose to have as a program as part of their fire department to
Mm-hmm.
offset their overhead expense, a full-time staff, keep the volunteers who are willing to come serve their community. We will train them, we will uniform them, and as long as they meet these standards by giving back to the community, we will give you the standards. And basically you got certified as a full-time paid. We were viewed as one and the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So anybody called 911 didn't realize that there was a volunteer. It was just a firefighter. We were all firefighters, and that's the way we approached it. So
Yeah.
loved it. Got to see some pretty hairy experiences. I could spend some time telling you about certain calls and this is and that's. A lot of great memories. A lot of, I've from that developed a great brotherhood, sisterhood from those that I met in the fire service, and those
Yeah.
connections remain today.
Yeah,
And
and they helped you at one point, like you were saying, and I think that's so incredible because here's Scientology where you had dedicated your life, you had committed for a billion years in the Sea Org, you got family who's Scientology, you lose all that for the dumbest of reasons, and
absolute
yet
dumbest.
here are these Riverside firefighters,
Riverside County, just so you know, because
Riverside County,
yeah.
and they got your back.
Well, Natalie, here's a story will relate that when they first separated, they being Marty Rathbun and Mike Sutter and these fucktards, excuse me for the F-bomb, Greg Wilhair, separated physically. My wife and I put her out at Happy Valley. It became my mental mission to reconnect with her because they're promising that just let her get her initial sessions and counseling and let her get chilled out, and you guys, you'll come back. That didn't freaking happen. So I secretly, over time, planned out this one pretty elaborate way in which I could jump the fence and leave. My problem is I had to overcome this time frame from the time they discovered I was gone and the time it took for me to get to my wife physically, which was a 12-minute, 15-minute drive.
Mhm.
So I had to get out there physically on foot. I had no transportation. So that was my battle in my mind, how to overcome that. So I spent months, I've been sitting there counting seconds and how long it took gates to open and close, how fast I could travel over land, flat land. Um, I was calculating. I mean, I was very calculated how I'm going to make this happen. It even got down to the point of, because it's so dark out there at night in that remote region, that when the sun goes down, it's freaking dark. You almost can't see the hand in front of your face. It's literally that dark. That I timed it in the same time with a full moon. So when I began my bolting process and hopped the fence, I had the moon to light my path.
Mhm.
I ran literally from that end base all the way to East Hemet. Um, I don't know. Funny thing is, I never done the math how far it was, but man, it was a long freaking way.
Mhm.
I ran the entire time. I even packed any money that I had in my sock and then put my sock on. So when I ran, you can hear the jingle. I secured myself that much to not give myself away. I ended up transitioning from my clothing into all black, so they didn't notice. It was all very subtle. And all the money that I had, I think it was like $2 and something, 275, 283 or something. ran all the way, um, and sat down and arrived at a Circle K. And I walked in and was like, God, man, I need something to drink. So I got me a pint of chocolate, ice cold chocolate milk.
Mhm.
And it was like $1.23 or something. I took my shoe off, pulled my sock off, gave it to the guy. He's like, I'm so sorry I got to do this to you, but it's the only way I can pay for this. So he was oddly humored by it, but took my money. I went out front and sat there and watched the sunrise coming up Mount San Jacinto, drinking that. It was just one of those moments that you never forget. This feeling of freedom. It was at my own will. No one could tell me no. No one could tell me, but it was beautiful at the same time. So I then put together in my mind, who can I contact? I had a good firefighter brotherhood. I knew where he lived. The sun was coming up. I can see a big header off in the distance. A header is a big column of smoke put off fire. So we call those in the fire industry a header. You see off in the distance, there's the header because that's the head of the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, shoot, maybe he's on fire, but I'll take the risk. I'll still go there. I knew his wife very socially, but she knew of me, and she knew Dave and I, how close we were. So
did the firefighters know and understand about Scientology and the Sea Org and what your life was like in there?
Well, that's where I'm leading with the stories at that time.
Okay.
It was an embarrassment to mention because the golden era, the Amp base was known as a porn making industry's suspicious cult. And
was that before Scientology was there, or
no, even up to this point. So back in 96.
Why did they think they were making porn there?
That was lore that came about just because the suspicion, the secrecy of the place.
Yeah.
And it was just it was never true, obviously, but it just was the local lore. Anyways, the crazy Scientologists.
Yeah.
So at that time that I'm leading to, I went up to my firefighter's house right at 7:00 in the morning and knock on the door. And I had already prepared myself. She's probably going to be freaked out. But all I heard was her voice, and that confirmed for me that he was not there. And she was like, I'm sorry I can't let you in. I know who you are, but it's just, it's proper protection for a female to have. Excuse me. So, okay, I'm going to fast forward to that having taken place. Eventually that little scenario, I went on to someone else and continued my journey trying to leave that place. But I'm going to say 6-7 years ago now, I guess shortly after the Aftermath series came out, I get this random text from this gal, Davis, his ex-wife now, where she was just like, I am so sorry for not answering that door and letting you in. I was flabbergasted.
Because she saw the Aftermath?
She saw my story. That's pretty stupendous as a human being to somebody to reach out like that and just say that. And then that led to me reconnecting with Dave himself.
Her former husband.
Yes, but he and I,
firefighter.
Yeah, and just he'd moved on his career and stuff. But we were always kind of stuck at the hip. And then he called me one day to make it very, very clear. He's like, dude, if I would have known you were there, I would have told you to kick the door in. I didn't know this help was available to me. It's a hell of a thing to be told now, these years later. It's like, I just comically say, got it. How different my life would be if I'd only reached out for help, I guess, which is kind of my motivation now of
Jackson's getting over a cold, y'all.
It's the scratchy throat syndrome. So the help that I didn't have then, I'm working on hard now to provide for others to get, it's Scientology makes life tricky. It's a very, there's not many Scientologists in the world, so it's not like a worldwide thing, but for those that partook in Scientology and felt the effects of Scientology. It's a very traumatizing experience. So I and myself and many others in this community, and yourself included, Natalie, I feel that we've all kind of created this unspoken but yet truthful effort to give people surfing looking for an answer how to get out of this craziness. Um, and by we talk, we relate our stories, we share our experiences, giving comfort to those who come here looking for it. Don't add any color to it, just tell it as it is. And I have found that when a human being finds out that, God, I wasn't the only one,
Yeah.
that in itself is very powerful to recognize and shake hands with. It's like that just kind of proves how not stupid you were at the time you were battling with this problem, because it's just a personal embarrassment thing, deep seated one. Quite honestly, I can only speak on my behalf, but that's what it was like for me. It's like that started giving me comfort that I'm not stupid. This is real. This is going on.
Yeah.
This I call bullcrap on this. And there's people that need to know about this. That takes a while, but now it's kind of accelerated by um the relating of these stories, not sensationalizing them, but sticking to the truth and the facts. Because the people listening, they want to hear and understand, to have a better understanding of their own unique way in which they travel, why they lost their child, or how they themselves may have even ended up being lied to, in the embarrassment of I fell for a cult. I mean, I had to get over that embarrassment just to be able to speak out. I mean, yeah, that's strange for me to say still to this day, because it clashes with me as a character, my personality.
Yeah.
I know I wouldn't do it today. I have that same view. I know I had that same view back then, but I did.
Yeah. Well, and you
So
were raised in it too. You were
yeah, being
16.
raised in it has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
So,
You went into the Sea Org at 16. It's not like anybody, when we grow up in Scientology, goes, "Hey, what would you like to do with your life? Do you want to
yeah,
think about college or anything?" No, that's just never the option. It's very
yeah.
understandable. So you were able to reconnect with Dave.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that conversation that we had. It's like, dude, you are my unspoken, true soul bonding brother, and you will forever be that. He just randomly called me one day. He says, "I just want you to know." I'm like, "Where's this coming from, Dave?" It's coming from my heart. And it just, the fact that he told me that was just. And then I have another, there was a captain, the local firehouse. Guy means the world to me. These are genuine people. They never had anything to do with Scientology, mind you.
Mhm.
They are freaking good human beings. Everybody has their faults. Everybody does their whatever is in life. But I got to tell you, these are two individuals that I have witnessed time and time and time again, good things as human beings from them. And it's just incredible. One in particular, his name's Tim. I went to his retirement party and first one I'd ever been to, but people who had remembered me from back then that I forgot about, that they came up to me. It's like, "Oh my God, Morehead." And I was just flabbergasted. It just was a great life experience.
Mhm.
Um, but these two individuals, they know deeply my deep story and wish they could only have been there for me.
Yeah, because
And
when you were putting fires out with them while you were in the Sea Org, they had no idea what your life was like. I mean, you
yeah,
really didn't share with them what life was like,
no,
the
but
life you're
it
living.
certainly explained to them why on training nights, I was always the last one to leave. I would stay there as late as I could just
Yeah,
because I loved being there.
yeah,
And, they were like, "That made sense, Morehead. Why you were always the one." I mean, it happened so much that they knew that I was always going to be the last one there. And I was always the first one to arrive. Um, so yeah, so much could be said about that, Natalie, but it's
What
just,
was the reaction to finding out the truth? I mean, obviously, he reached out and reconnected with you. Was it just they were just that continued shock of, "We had no idea that this is what your life
they had
was."
no idea the impact and how screwed up I was about it, and the mental trap that I was in.
Yeah.
And, they feeling bad themselves that themselves were, I had one guy in particular, his name's Robert. He used to you know, he used to do that old bullying. Oh, you're one of those. He
Mm.
called me up one day crying. I can't believe I became that guy when you were in so need of help.
Wow.
You know what I mean? These experiences, Natalie, were just it just kind of proved the value of what I was doing resulted in this, because not just my contribution to this community is that I'm not the only one that's come and told their soul searching stories and continued to make an effort to provide a comfortable environment for people looking for help and better understanding. But man, when you have another human being tell you this just out of the blue, that was a very, very moment for me.
Yeah, that
And
had to have been so humanizing after going through such a dehumanizing experience. I've been holding back crying for like 30 minutes now.
why?
It's because it's just I mean, the chat, I mean, you guys know just the loss, but then finding these relationships for you,
Oh man.
having like really discovering really like they're like family, like you said, your brothers, to have that connection through firefighting after all of that. I'm
And
sorry, it's just it's
the
all
career that I
lost.
missed out on because of that is also heartbreaking. I should be retiring with where I'd be have my own firehouse, my own crew somewhere, something I don't know,
Yeah.
deeply well involved in the fire service. But I became as well. I'll let you take a moment there, sweetie.
Okay. I'm the host, you're all giving me a minute. I'm like, I was really keeping it together, but that last thing when your friend reached out just got me. I'm just like, "Oh,
Yeah, well,
I just been sitting here feeling just incredible heartbreak over what you went through,
yeah.
and what you lost, but then to find that connection again, I think is such
Years later.
who you
Yeah.
are and who they are. These people who were never in Scientology, and even the one guy who might have judged you at some time earlier, but he calls you crying.
Yeah. I was I don't know what to say, Natalie. I there's guys that remember my wife and ask about her because she used to. I'd hop in the car. She wanted to come with, and she would sleep in the car. And while I'm in a house fully involved single family dwelling, she would just sleep in the car just to be there with me. And they knew that. And you know, they still ask about her. You know, you'd figure you'd have that in the community that you worked for and intimately was part of, but they want freaking nothing to do with you. So, but yeah, I'm sorry, Natalie. I didn't mean to.
Oh, it's totally
I've been staring at my phone. I got you. I didn't even recognize that the indications were there that you were trying to hold yourself back.
No, Gary, it's fine.
Okay, I know it is what it
it's
is.
an appropriate reaction to what it is and to what we're talking about. These are things
Yeah,
that even they're just they're touching and they should be. People should be, moved or upset by this. But I think that is what's so fascinating about your story is I mean, I think it could be a movie with the firefighting and everything. And, I just want to say I'm so sorry. There were so many comments in the chat too when you were talking about your wife and, the child that could have been and all of that. It it's heartbreaking because it is and it should be, but you're
yeah.
willing to share this to raise awareness. And I'm so impressed with your firefighter brothers who came forward and especially the guy that was bullying and mean to you and then called up actually crying to reach out and try.
Apologizing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. You're not gonna see that from, David Miscavige.
Oh no. You know, these little things in the background here mean a lot to me. Um, you know, those are my two helmets through my career. That's my first helmet, structure helmet that I melted on a training fire. So I had to buy a new helmet. And that was the helmet that I left with. I was allowed to take with me. But you know, they're just little symbols of, you know, um, and I all my connections, the folks I got in my phone, There's almost daily. I just spoke another one. I mean, when I travel to Southern California, there's a guy's house that I stay at all the time. And he's just enamored by my story, and it's because now that the story and the truth has been put out there, yeah, it's a whole new level of embracement.
Yeah.
I have these true friends, and I have I would never take advantage of it, but man, do I have a lot of couches I could crash on if I ever need to in Southern California, you know. um, but yeah, it's and then in our own community, it's like those that I grew up with at the base and witnessed their experiences from my perspective and saw who they were and chose to be, in my mind, they were a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Um, so it's rather fascinating, Natalie. It's a story in my life that I guess I don't know. My mind is kind of jumping around here, so I'm
Yeah,
trying to
I'm gonna grab some comments and questions here.
Yeah.
Arkansas Flamingo says, "Hi Gary, you're an amazing person."
Okay, thank you.
Hermie says, "Aloha Natalie and Jackson." Shard of Word says, "Jackson, you're a light in the dark." Jersey Jan, Jackson, did you get involved with the cult of Scientology because your parents joined?
Yep.
That's right, because it was your mom. Your
Yep.
mom was a Scientologist? Yeah.
Yeah, our family started in Orange County, the Tustin org back in the day. So it was not something that I read as a piece of mail or, hey, there's Scientology. Wandered into an org. Nope, my parents.
Yep. Lori Play says, "Oh, I love Jackson. He's a sweetheart. Hey, Jackson."
Hi, Lori.
Be Merry for Life says, click thumbs up to donate your finger to the anti-cult of Scientology community and have YouTube help Natalie spread the anti-Scientology strategy for living life after a cult.
Wow.
Hitting the like button. Thank you, Be Merry
Yeah.
for Life. I appreciate that reminder, truly. Cody Quinn says, joining late and catching up. Good to hear from Jackson. Amber Vanessa. Amber's asking, Jackson, did you ever have to do the estates project course?
CMO, that's the Commerce Messenger Organization version of it, I did. Not the official C organization, because I came up through the cadet org.
Oh, okay. That's right. Early on, not all cadets had to do it, right?
No.
Or did it?
No, you didn't transition from cadet org, then do the EPF, and then get posted. I was in the cadet org, and yeah, didn't have to.
Yeah. Jess LaBarber gives you a big hello.
Hello. Jessica, I maybe say something that can help stimulate my brain cells of the over 900 base staff that I knew personally, but I don't know if it's your last name. Maybe I had another last name.
Yeah, I don't know if that was her last name or it was a different one. I think it might have been.
What she did at the base.
Yeah, I think she worked with the e-meters. What I remember most about Jess LaBarber is she had to salute David Miscavige's dog.
Wow. Okay.
Fat Cat's Heaven says, I blew from the Rehabilitation Project Force at INT in 83 or 84. Did you maintain a list of people who blew?
Up until the day I was taken off post, I did, yes.
Okay. Let's see.
So
Question.
RPF at INT in 83, 84. Wow.
Yeah. Cubana Chica is asking, how did you get your cards back? So when people would take the food card or the pay card.
Yeah, there was this routing form, which is a standard Sea Org protocol. It would be drawn up of the steps that you take to go through getting correction. It's called a staff member in trouble routing form. So if you lost a card, you were considered a staff member in trouble. So you'd be put on that and get routed through HR and qualifications division, find what your problem was, and get through the correction process and get signed off and get your card back. So yeah.
Go through your reindoctrination.
Yep.
Your reprogramming and get your card back.
Yep.
That sounds about right. That's a great question, Cubana Chica.
Yeah.
Amber Vanessa says, and we were all told that gold was awesome and you would love to work there. So work hard to get there and you get to eat lobster and steak every night.
Oh my gosh, yes. I was there so long I was not aware of that at that end, but I guess I had that pie in the sky view too, you know.
But it wasn't like that.
No, it was just to me, it was the place in which the hard stuff got done by the hardcore people.
Yeah. Marco is asking, what firearms and tactical equipment did Scientology security carry on them?
Well, that kind of varied throughout the years, but initially we had, like I said, the 12 gauge shotguns. We didn't carry them at all. We were not licensed to carry them.
Mhm.
But we were licensed to carry these PR-24 batons. It was basically a baton that a patrolman or police officer to have. Kind of, they get out of the car, they slip their flashlight in, or they slip that stick into the holder. There's one that has a handle on it that you use for. It's called a PR-24. We were trained on that and got certified with that, and that's about it. And then eventually, we had those tactical sticks that you could extend out, and that was as stuff was developing up to the time but there wasn't much.
All right, cool. A Time to Change says, hello, handsome. I don't know if you know that person.
Hello, handsome.
Hello,
Okay.
handsome.
I do not.
Anna from Canada says, Jackson, such a kind man. Geoplanet Jane, Jackson, you're a true hero for speaking up and speaking out.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Geoplanet. Did I get that right? Geoplanet?
Yeah, Geoplanet Jane, I believe.
Okay.
Professor Kakan says, at La Quinta, as I was trying to route out, I was denied food completely. For the last 3 days, I ate grapefruit off the trees in the orchard.
Wow. So I'm gonna say that there may have been a variety of people choosing to do that. It wasn't a set standard to not feed people as part of the process. But I'm guessing if there was an executive or human being that was extra upset at you, may have said that, or they just chose not to feed you. I don't know. It wasn't the undertone, but I'm so sorry to hear that. I mean, they got that freaking memory. You never forget things like that. So that's screwed up.
Yeah, that is really messed up to deprive somebody of food, not
Yeah,
even rice and beans for 3
I
days.
know. I know. God.
Juanita is a protester out in Chicago, says, Jackson, thank you for sharing your story. It's so powerful.
Sure.
I agree. Jersey Jan says, Jackson, kids can't consent. Your mother brought you in. Yeah.
Yep. So true.
And Cat 76 Fibro Warrior says, sending my love from England. Hearing Jackson's story brings tears to my eyes. And and Geoplanet Jane says, yeah, hello, handsome. What is your relationship status, Jackson? You don't have to answer that. I'm just curious.
Well, if I had a relationship to tell you about, I could tell you about it, but I don't. So
So what I'm hearing, ladies, is he's single, and here's his YouTube channel. Gary Jackson Morehead. You can find him there. You can subscribe. Gary, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I would love to do it again. I feel like there's so many more pieces of this that we can get into and cover as well. So much more. So hopefully we can do this again.
Well, yeah, Natalie, and I just think it's important that people in their own time go through their time periods, however long it takes for them to shed Scientology as a fear factor in their own minds.
Yeah.
And it is surprising that even to this day, that one little controlling factor that Scientology has, and that's people's family. Even people on the outside are. It's that one thing that I don't know. I haven't figured out how to defeat yet, and it's like, but they're your family. I guess it's the law that delineates once you hit 21, you're free to choose, and they can do what they choose. So the authorities that are there to help, there's nothing anybody can do, and there has to be a cutoff point and stuff. But I got to tell you, when somebody's consciously involved in something so bad, it's the cult of Scientology. I'm not against what people believe, but I'm certainly against what these people believe are the people that do to the people. It's that culture environment. So I don't know, it's a barrier we have yet to continue to
Yeah.
work at, but just being there for people to better understand the crazy, don't add to the crazy, but to be there for those that are seeking help and a better understanding of what's going on. And
Yeah.
there's also those that, like, I know that there's some litigation out there that's going to be significant if it ever finds the light at that end of that tunnel. But there's some that are enduring that on yours and I's behalf, in essence,
Mhm.
um, because of holding accountability. Holding accountability is so important in this traumatized environment that accountability is that. I mean, I'm willing to be accountable for my stuff. I know a lot of my fellow folks all the same, and that's why we all done what we've done and why we're at where we are at today. So,
Mhm, and it can't really be forced, it's something
no, at
that
all.
individually come to on our own in
Well,
reason.
I wonder, like, I asked those that I reported to, and I know others have who spoke to the same people. It's how come you don't put the jewelry on me? And the way that our system sees it is
Wait,
different.
what
I
do you
mean,
mean jewelry?
handcuffs. Well,
Oh,
why
okay.
I could easily be jailed for my participation in things that I did and partook in,
Mhm,
on the human trafficking factor, the coming up with devious plans and ideas and whatever's and executing them and creating this toxic environment. You
mhm.
know, I didn't know everything that went on behind the scenes. I can't speak on there, but I know you and I both have a mutual, the loss of a mutual friend recently, Mr. Mikey, um, and ultimately, uh, uh, you know, the like, I've tried to look back at all the little details. Like I said, I know there's some people that may be lingering out there yelling at the screen. I'm more than willing to have those conversations, and I know others are more than willing to have those conversations. Just
Yeah,
to say I'm sorry. I
mhm.
guess that's what we're all eventually. I could never accept a sorry from David at all, but at least because we were all there in the same playing ground, Natalie. We were there in the same sandbox, wanting to play with the same things, and um, we intended to create no harm
Mhm.
and just a better place. So, um, I don't know. I don't know what motivated me to say that. I just got in my mind. Kind of bugs me every now and then. Some people get so upset. Whatever.
Well, I appreciate you sharing what you have, and I know that everybody watching has as well. There's been just, like, a crazy amount of positive and supportive comments because this is what can help lead to, like you said, be there for other people. They're not
Yeah.
the only ones, the people who leave, but also raising awareness so other people don't fall for
Yeah.
Scientology or another cult.
It's what this community has organically grown into.
Mhm.
I mean, I can only speak on my behalf. I believe that I witnessed the same about you, Natalie, knowing from the first time I met you back there in Texas, and you know what I speak of then. Um, and that's when you were still with Brad.
Yeah. Yeah, we had
Um,
just left Scientology.
yeah. And but you know, just knowing what we know, and I think that my involvement my way helped provide you with the path of comfort.
Mhm.
Um, somewhere
Absolutely.
along the way, and you give me comfort and those listening, and that's the whole perpetual organicness of this, you
Yeah.
see, and that's what we give each other, and staying strong to that um has been the success of the beauty of this community. I find so much value in that, so much value.
Me too. I
Yeah.
agree. I feel very fortunate to be here. I've been only around in this community now for about a year, and the more I get to reconnect or connect again or even meet people for the first time and share their stories, it's all this shared experience and
Mhm.
getting it out there and making it known is just and there's so many, like, so many people never I always say never in Scientology, but all in on bringing down this cult who take this information and who understand and who can share it and get it
Mhm.
out there too to help raise awareness so other people know they're not alone. Maybe it's not even Scientology, it could be other cult or high control group. People know
Yeah.
what it's like to feel alone
Yeah.
And that is always my hope, is that here in this community, that whether it's former members or people never in Scientology, that we can come together, and if nothing else, for just the time that we're even here together doing a video, that people don't feel alone. I think
And
it's totally worthwhile doing.
and the beautiful power of this, Natalie, is how much I know more than you, and I don't say this to create separation between us of levels of knowledge, but you know that I know how much this pisses the church off,
Yeah.
that you and I are able to do this,
Yeah.
and that the beauty of spreading the sunshine
Hmm.
is what's killing off the germs, and that is Scientology's devious efforts. It really, they hate, if there's anything to be that we know that gets upsets the church, and that is that you and I expose this for what it is.
Yeah, they don't like community. They don't like us coming together. They don't like us talking to each other.
No.
That's why Scientology trolls exist with the Office of Special
Yeah.
Affairs, to try and create problems
Yep.
so that these people don't want to talk to those people. That is the whole idea. They want to continue the separation and not let us near each other, to continue to not just share these stories, but support each other and other people who need support, to maybe bring them forward and experience a lot of the compassion that this community and so many people who watch and hear these stories feel
Yep.
and express. Scientology does not want that. So I love every time we can get together, every time we can show aloha towards each other. It's sticking it to Scientology. They
That's
can't
right.
stand that. They will work very hard to try and keep us from talking to each other.
Oh
So I
yeah.
appreciate you coming on and doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it truly is an unspoken, self-satisfying treat to
Yeah, exactly. It is
do
annoying
it.
that it annoys Scientology, and yeah, it
Well,
does.
it defeats them at their game. It not I'm happy that it annoys them. It defeats them. It hits them in the knees. It weakens
Mhm.
their ability to perpetuate and keep up their game.
Yeah.
The media no longer takes their crappy legal threats. People don't buy into that anymore. That took a while to work through, but we got through it.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't think that I think it gets lost sometimes that people don't understand that with Scientology, they want division, they
yeah,
want hate, they want anger, they want all of those, because it renders people, they can't really go from there. You can't be very effective. You don't want to put yourself out there and share your story and have your attention forward when you're angry and upset and involved in, who hates who. Then you're not actually focusing on exposing Scientology. So they totally want that. Anytime we're kind or we create community, I mean, you can just feel Miscavige and Scientology having an aneurysm. I mean, it
yeah,
just, because that's how he operates, in that band of anger and threats and intimidation. And when we can show that not only did a lot of us survive this cult, but we're going to continue to show up with as much kindness and compassion as we can muster for each other and for the rest of this community, and even people who join us in watching the videos,
that's right.
because it's the right thing to do, and it's what Scientology doesn't want us to do. And it's so motivating for me. I'm so
Me
motivated
too.
by irritating them.
It and if anything, the one thing that is so powerful is it's the truth.
Yes.
Um, it's nothing, not sensationalized truth. Nothing. It's simply the truth. You ask me a question, I give you the actual answer.
Mhm.
Um, we know Scientology doesn't change. Let's take a quick. I'm just really quickly the volunteer minister program. Every time there's a major high profile social event
Mhm.
occurring, such as the wildfires in LA,
Yeah.
you and I first thought is the guys in yellow t-shirts looking for photo opportunities.
Mhm.
What do we hear? These guys going around to these places of donation, taking those donations under the guise that they're going to go redistribute them.
Mhm.
It's just such a grotesque thing. And this is the next level that I'm hopeful we can get out to society, that, yes, if you're going to call yourselves the world's largest volunteer program,
Mhm.
that's an insult to the others that are big, well organized, such as the Red Cross and so forth. But time and time again, just now, I think I saw a recent article on how they were out caught doing that, and someone noted it on public media, social media, that this was disgusting.
Yeah.
It was disgusting. A citizen of life, of society, witnessed this at play.
Oh, multiple. I recapped
Yeah.
this morning
Oh,
3,
you
5
did.
different videos and articles
Oh, wow.
calling out Scientology
Yeah.
for doing that, like
See?
on AOL, on other platforms, not just YouTube creators or content creators, but actual news organizations, even on top of the content creators, calling it out.
Right.
Yeah.
And now that's the next thing we could, again, that you and I have witnessed, that it forces them to change.
Mhm.
Otherwise, they won't change,
No.
because if this keeps getting exposed, which is bringing the truth to the table, they're going to they have nowhere to go do these volunteer programs. And every time somebody shows up a yellow shirt, they're going to get called out in public. And
Exactly.
so we're going to see the other end of this now. I guess after the March 13th event, we're going to see the leaked what went on in the event, and we're going to see the photo ops
Yeah.
coming out
They're
in
also
play.
putting them on X. They're putting them out on social media.
The churches?
Things. Yeah, they put out some of their photos and images so far
God.
on X. So after we're done, you have homework. You got to go watch my recap from this morning
I'm
because
going to
I
have to.
shared so much
Oh
stuff.
my gosh.
It's gonna blow your mind.
Predictable, right? Right,
Yeah,
Natalie? No
exactly.
surprise to you and I, but
Mm-mm.
you pulled the what do they call that? The receipts?
Yeah, yeah. We just show it. They're their own worst enemy. I'm just over here going, look what
So incredible.
over here.
Yeah. But it's just, again, I kind of highlight that as, I should have done my homework to realize you'd already done this, but so I apologize.
No worries. Plus, you're on a different. You're 2 hours behind me. So when
Yeah,
I'm doing my recap, that's early for you.
yeah. And but my stories self-collaborate with other stories you've heard of other people's experiences in Scientology.
Mhm.
That in itself is the telltale sign that Scientology's crazy is at play.
Yeah.
And when you see or witness this or hear these stories, that is the simple understanding. And that's what you and I help facilitate, Natalie, is people's understanding that, yeah, this is just batshit crazy. It's like seeing a bunch of cardinals out there, um, from the Vatican collecting this stuff, saying that they're going to go redistribute it,
Mhm.
But in a Scientologist mind, it's like these guys can do no harm, but they're actually doing harm right in front of your face.
Yeah.
They're actually not, they're soliciting funds out of you to go donate. They got billions of dollars to support that volunteer program.
Mhm. Mhm.
But they don't. But they require you to pay up to go hand out pamphlets. They don't need pamphlets to rebuild the Palisades, right?
Mhm.
Don't get me started. So
Yeah, exactly.
I'm saying that to myself.
Yes. Well,
Uh,
we'll keep talking, Jackson. I would love to have you back on because we didn't even get to half of it. You know what I'm saying? There's so much to talk about and share, but I really want to thank you for doing this today. I know the audience loved it. Everybody hit that like, hit that subscribe, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
well, yes, Natalie, thank you for your time. And there we have it.
Good. All right. Well, you hold tight. I'm gonna end the
Okay.
video here. Thank you everybody for being here. I hope you all get out and whatever's left of your day, have a cult-free day.